Hot Wheels Slot Car Racing was the first Hot Wheels game that I ever played. If you thought mechanics looked a little primitive and rough around the edges, wait till you see what I have in store for you today. This game was made 1 year prior to mechanics, and since it's a slot car racing game, it actually came with slot car controllers. Sadly, they're probably not going to work on my computer, even though I do still have them, because I get the funny feeling the connector ports just aren't going to work. My computer's simply too new to play games like this properly. You'll quickly see what I mean. So let's get into it. We start off with a pre-rendered flyby of a dark and stormy night somewhere in the world of Hot Wheels. Maybe it's my nostalgia talking, but I love this intro sequence. It almost gives off vibes of the California coast. Is that Alcatraz we just passed by down there? Doesn't matter. We fly into the Battery Street building and start entering some secret passages. I like how they just conveniently open up just for us. The robot doesn't seem bothered by you waltzing in and sliding down the elevator cable. No time to call the elevator, we've got places to be. Like this big heavy door that just opens for us. Not much of a secret if it just opens for the night janitor that happens to be passing by. Anyway, a few more doors and here we are. That is a poorly angled green screen shot. All that security, if you can call it that, and it's just a guy welding together a slot car track.
Hey!
Hey,
How did you get in here?
your front door was open.
This is a top secret, off-limits, high-security Hot Wheels lab. Authorized personnel only.
Looks like I'm authorized.
On the other hand, you're here now, and I need a Hot Wheels toy tester.
What's the pay rate?
You see, I'm on the verge of an amazing breakthrough with some awesome new cars and tracks, but I still need someone to test drive them. Yes, I think you'll do just fine.
Sweet.
Come on.
So he walks you through how to pick a car and track using his needlessly elaborate tech. When you're a kid who grew up in the 90s, practicality is of secondary concern compared to just making it look cool. I mean, hey, who doesn't love a good Rube Goldberg machine, right? Same thing with overly elaborate tech to perform mundane tasks. Mousetrap had a setup so complicated and confusing, even your parents armed with the instruction manual could barely figure it out. But God, was it worth it. So the last thing this guy covers is the track editor. A pretty common addition for its time. Stunt Track Driver and Revolt had the same thing, but like those games, it's actually pretty limited with how much you can do. You're never going to be able to make the same set-piece tracks the game comes with, but the effort is appreciated. I'll touch on that later, but for now our friend has some words of advice.
Watch out. Some of these cars don't know their own strength.
I still don't understand what he means by that. In any case, he summons a CG elevator to take him down to do his own work, but he lets you know that he'll still be keeping tabs on you. And with that, we are left to our own devices. An intro sequence so cool to watch, you forget to ask how you even got here, or if you were genuinely flying as shown at the start. It was too cool to really care anyway. As far as track selection goes, this is it. What you see is what you get. It's just these 8 tracks, and the track designer. Like mechanics, these tracks are short, and only 3 laps apiece. But the environments are a bit more varied this time around, and they don't overstay their welcome. Now, despite what that guy said, not all the tracks are actually ready to be tested, as he helpfully informs you,
No, that track isn't ready yet.
there's something very strange about the way he says no there. Anyway, going over to the car selector, you only have 4 cars to choose from right now, and they're all faithful to their real-life counterparts. Each car is based on a spittin' image? Are you fucking kidding me? We're doing this again? How did they screw that one up? The Shadow Jet 2 is also misnamed, this time as the Stinger, but at least it looks like it's supposed to. Despite every car having a different speed and performance stat, as far as I can tell, they all handle the exact same way. Not that that really means much in a slot car game. Alright, let's race.
Alright, space race. Get ready to blast off.
You can tell they were counting on the loading screen being a little bit longer. Also, rest assured that the irony of this game starting in space and the last game I covered ending in space is not lost on me. The controls are about as limited as you'd expect. You can accelerate, slow down, and change lanes. You use lane changing and timing to dodge obstacles, and that's pretty much it. No jumping, no turbo boost, nothing fancy, just bog standard slot car racing. Plus lane changing. You almost always want to take the inside of the turn because it's faster than taking the outside. No pesky real-world physics to get in the way of that. Well, usually. But we'll get to that. I love that they go all out with the environments you drive in. They're so nice. What's the point of a slot car video game if they're not going to be this outlandish? There's a spaceship beaming the track, aliens playing volleyball with a meteorite, a warp drive tunnel, and astronauts around a space shuttle, all seen from a track floating in the void of space. Try getting any of that on a real slot car racing track. Although the meteorite can hit your car, so you have to be careful. Since the whole game is on rails, they also like to go all out with the camera and the angles they point it at. They have vistas and set pieces to show, and by God are they gonna show them. We're getting some pretty neat angles in this race, but believe me, it only gets better from here. The objective, obviously, is to finish in first place, so that you can unlock more tracks and more cars. Easier said than done, thanks to some issues I had running this on a modern machine. Yeah, just another loose end to tie up later in the video, but you'll get a taste of this one very soon. When you win a race, the next track is unlocked, and the newest car is automatically selected. Each new car is thematically tied to the track. I find it funny that sometimes the new car has worse or identical stats to the car you were just using, but like I said, it doesn't make a difference anyway.
Whoa, Chaos City. Watch that midtown traffic.
Holy shit, this is way more of an upgrade than I thought! Yeah, welcome to playing old games on modern Windows. Sometimes it runs like it's on meth, sometimes it slows to a crawl for no reason. Despite toying around with my monitor's refresh rate, and the executable itself with NVIDIA Control Panel, I couldn't fix that. I don't think running it on a VM would have done me any favors either, but my stubbornness prevented me from finding out for sure. If I ever do get a VM set up, I'll have to put this to the test in a follow-up and give you a definitive answer. But that's for another time. Chaos City, in the meantime, speaks to the game's knack for making beautiful environments out of what would otherwise be mundane locales. There's lots of color, the buildings have personality, I mean look at their shape! And you get to ride through a construction site and a park before wall riding a building. Hell yes. The buildings do repeat a fair bit, which is to be expected when you have limited time and resources, and you're probably counting on the short attention span of kids anyway. But it's so nice to look at that I really don't mind that much. None of it really matters when I get to do this. They're really pushing boundaries and I love it. Besides, there are bigger problems to worry about. Like this. Those are some interesting hitboxes we're working with. By every metric, I should have been able to clear the piano no problem. But that's only the beginning. The game is not without its quirks. One of my favorites being the fact that there's always a hot dog vendor around the corner to replace the one about to disappear behind the bush. And the fact that instead of turning him into road pizza, you wipe out if you hit him. But there are a few mechanics that really dampen the experience, even for a kid. Especially for a kid, if you ask me. This race establishes the importance of changing lanes to avoid obstacles and taking the inside line on all the turns. But that's going to get turned on its head later on. By the way, population 256? That's gotta be a nod to 256 colors, right? I love little Easter eggs like that. Now I don't know what the soul air has to do with the jungle, aside from looking like a submersible since we get to drive in water again, but they could have picked worse. I will admit, at least, once we get into the race, it'll make more sense.
Ah, Jungle Isle. No monkey business now.
Surprise! There are now forks in the road, and this race hits you with one right off the bat. In this case, you can go left to take the shorter but hazardous route through a tiki statue gate thing, or you can go right to take a longer but safer path. And once you go through the waterfall, you've got another split decision to make. Left goes underwater past a giant octopus, and right goes over a jump, then underwater through a giant electric eel and a shipwreck. I don't know if one route is faster than the other, but the AI always goes left. It probably makes the most sense to just go right every lap to avoid running into traffic or the octopus's tentacle that the AI is so bad at dodging. Yeah, this is where you start to notice cracks in the AI. Like mechanics, their mentality is full force forward, regardless of everything and anything. They know to go around obstacles like the waterfall and ants eating the road, but it's just gas, gas, gas for everything else, including obstacles that require timing to avoid, like the octopus. That Oh! What did I just hit? Did I seriously just crash into nothing? I'm glad I caught that one on camera. There's a separate, similar sound if your car slips off the track from taking a turn too fast, but that wasn't it. Suitable foreshadowing for what's to come later, because that's not the last time my car is gonna wipe out on nothing. Anyway, next up is Haunted Hill, coupled with the most badass looking car yet. Slightly less speed and slightly more performance than the last car. Like that even means anything. Let's go.
Yikes, Haunted Hill. Spooky.
Yeah, I forgot you can play dirty with the other drivers and cut them off, forcing them to crash. That's always satisfying. You can do it in the split-screen multiplayer too, but that's just BM. Then again, what kid playing this is gonna be above BM? Against the AI, I have no reservations, especially when the game does this. What was I supposed to do to dodge that? I swear, half the time you're better off just running into the obstacle because it's faster to do that and take the post-hit invincibility than it is to wait for the obstacle to be out of the way. Oh yeah, I should probably talk about that big bastard. He twists back and forth and occasionally reaches down onto the helix. His left hand is a big club that knocks out your car if you hit it. His right, empty hand can grab your car, pick it up, then slowly rotate to the other end of the helix and drop it back on the track. This is the first major fuck you the game has to offer. Realistically, it's not going to hurt you too much because the opponents are so bad at dodging obstacles and the obstacles themselves are so unfair, and more down to random chance than actual skill or timing, that you'll probably be able to catch up to them again anyway. But it doesn't add anything to the difficulty, it's just mean. Fortunately, he can only grab one car at a time, and the AI get no special favors. But remember, there's no rubber banding, so playing dirty and getting lucky with obstacles is almost necessary to maintain your position sometimes. Other than that, this is about what you would expect of a haunted house track. Monsters and ghosts, big green goblin hands feeling up the track, and a haunted house with blink-and-you'll-miss-it interior decor. I like that the haunted house is part of the track, instead of the whole track being set entirely inside the haunted house. But I have to say, the inclusion of a guillotine is a little grim. But the map still gives off all the right vibes for a spooky setting with good vistas and great camera work, especially going up the hill and then down and out of the haunted house via the organ ramp. Try making any of this with a real slot car set. The next track is where I started to have problems. I distinctly remember being able to run Rattlesnake Raceway flawlessly once upon a time, both from a driving and performance standpoint. But now, this is where the game busted out the knives, and I don't even think it was trying to do that.
Yeehaw! Rattlesnake Raceway. Leave 'em in the dust.
On top of the game not being able to make up its mind how fast it wants to run, we have these tight turns right at the start that you're going to wipe out on, and even the AI struggle with them. But that's just the beginning. I navigate through the mines with ease and even gain the lead, but this is a temporary state of affairs. This map is a culmination of random wipeouts and bullshit obstacles. Maybe this would be easier with the analog control of a slot car trigger, but that would only help so much. This must have taken me 6 or 7 tries to beat this one race, and looking at the playback, it's pretty obvious why that is. Oh, that's fair. I should have dodged that. Oops. 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 Yeah, not so easy, is it, you chump? It crashed. That's not a common occurrence, so I'm gonna blame Windows for that one. Grievances aside, this is another well-themed track for the most part. I love the camera work in the big rock formation, and the cave full of gems is gorgeous. If you can get in there. But these damn turns! Sometimes I make it through fine. Other times, even if I approach super carefully... I understand they're making an attempt at realism, because slot cars really do fly off the tracks if you take a turn too fast with them. But was this really necessary? Let alone to this degree? I don't know how much is intentional or how much is bad programming, but it annoyed me then and it annoys me now. And get used to it, because you're gonna see a lot of it. Doesn't matter if it's you or the AI, everyone has a random chance of getting screwed over on the turns. Even now on the final lap, the game keeps me guessing, because I make it through those 2 notorious turns just fine, but if you take a listen, you'll hear my opponents slipping behind me. That's probably the only reason I even won this goddamn race finally. So, while I'm a sucker for the Wild West aesthetics of this track and this car, this track is hands down the worst in terms of gameplay. If not for the AI slipping on the turns and smashing into the minecart and me getting lucky and being in the right lane at the right time, I would have had to start over yet again. Here I would have gone for a pass through the crystal cave, but as I saw the rattlesnake's mouth closing, I wisely chickened out and just went the other way. I was not about to do this all over again. So that's the worst track out of the way. That means I'm done complaining, right? I wish. Now we come to the strangest vehicular addition yet, the rigger motor. The correlation between medieval times and a coffin on a motor and chassis is lost on me, but maybe one of you folks could enlighten me. Maybe I'll get lucky and a developer will spot this video someday.
Knight's Kingdom. Slay the dragon and wail on the wizard.
For now, we move on to hands down the ugliest track in the game. Ho there, guardsman, may I pass? You've my eternal gratitude. Ah, your majesty, you're looking... Ugh. Did not sign up to get Frenched by a frog. Ugh. Well, I can safely say, when you get to this first fork in the road, do not go left. This route is way longer for no good reason at all, and there's no reason to go this way, ever, under any circumstances. You just waste time and lose positions. I don't even know why they added it. Mercifully, the AI is about as bad as ever at dodging obstacles, so it shouldn't be a problem. I do have a question, though. Where exactly in mythology does it say that griffins can breathe fire? Or better yet, why is the color palette so ugly? I get they were going for a Dark Ages vibe, but I think they went a little overboard here. With every other track having a much more saturated color scheme, this is the most visually unappealing track in the entire game. It also kind of feels like they were running out of ideas here, because there's a lot less going on in this track compared to the other maps. These Stonehenge-looking structures feel out of place, and the backstretch is so barren. What stayed consistent, at the very least, is the creativity of the track layout. I love that it doesn't feel obligated to stay on the ground at all times and just goes wherever it wants, over, under, and around everything in its way. This is pretty much exactly how 5-year-old me would have laid out a Hot Wheels track. If the kid from Stunt Track Driver was working on these tracks, this is what he would do. And I have to say, even though this is the ugliest track, some of its obstacles are some of the funniest. The way it's timed, you would think the guards were intentionally slamming their halberds into you as you pass by. The giant frog prince is a little random, but it at least fits the fairy tale motif. Same thing with the giant wizard in the next room. Probably one of the trippiest sections of the whole game. You go around, inside him, then up a ramp, and all of a sudden you're out in a medieval battlefield. A battlefield full of animated versions of Flame.png, as famously used in the early episodes of Raging Roblox Reviewer. They don't even try to hide the fact that they're just 2D sprites, and if they were trying, they did a bad job of it. But at the same time, it contributes to the conspicuous artificiality of a slot car track, which I can kind of appreciate in its own right. But then you have things like that knight fighting the griffin. The knight is a 2D sprite, and the griffin is the fully rendered 3D model. They look so awkward next to each other. Last thing worth mentioning is the chickens crossing the road in the village. I didn't catch it in the act, but if you run into one of those chickens, you crash. Now that's funny. I bet real-life animals wish that's how it worked. The schizophrenia is strong with this game's difficulty curve, at least the way I'm trying to play it. Because despite ending up dead last at the start of the race, I was able to claw my way back to first place, and handily won the race. Time for Age Speedway, and a car with a bit of personal history for me. You see, I actually own every single diecast in this game.
Ooh, Age Speedway. Blast from the past.
Except the Speedosaurus. Or rather, I used to have the Speedosaurus, but then it went missing somewhere, and I never found it again. I tried to... Could we get a slow motion replay of that one, please? And while we're at it, could someone please explain to me how this molten rock that blends in with the volcano is supposed to be dodgeable in any capacity? Well, at least they don't discriminate since the AI is getting hit as well. And we're being launched out of a volcano, which is badass. Once again, you can see they're going all out with the environments. I just wish that didn't keep happening. Oh, that was close. You know why it was close? That pterodactyl, if it grabs your car, will take you all the way back before the Brachiosaurus. Yeah, another one of those situations like in Haunted Hill. Worse still is there's 2 different places it can grab you. Yep, a molten rock a day keeps the enjoyment away. One of the worst situations in a game is when failure straight up isn't your fault. And there are more of those situations than I would prefer in this game. Not that I was gonna let nostalgia blind me, because I hated it then, and I hate it now. Back then I complained about it being unfair, and today I complain about it being unfair. Like this. Although one thing I can say, for some reason the hitboxes on the T-Rex's feet are a lot more consistent than they were back in the day. Back then I would try to go underneath him and crash into nothing, or just straight up phase through his leg. What changed? I don't know. Questionable hitboxes and unfair obstacles aside, this is a really neat course. I gotta respect them for going through time and space to pick their destinations. Mechanics, by comparison, had 3 races in space and 4 on contemporary Earth. And despite a Velociraptor twice defying the odds and taking down a Stegosaurus all by himself, I win the race and unlock the final track, Wonderland Amusement Park. What better for a grand finale than an amusement park in the Road Rocket, a suitably badass name for your final car.
Woo, Wonderland! Hang on to your helmets, this is gonna be a wild ride.
Holy shit! Slow down, I'm too young to die! Jesus H. Christ, it's not supposed to be that fast. Well, no more wonky hitboxes, right? Why am I so naive? Well, let's go again and see if it happens again. I don't understand things. This track takes you on a roller coaster ride, which is a really cool idea. Though I wish they did a little more with the amusement park theming they had going on. And be careful not to take the inside of the turns lest the game thinks you're having too much fun. Heaven forbid the player have a satisfying experience on the finale. This is also the only track in the game where you do loops. It makes sense that they'd save those for the roller coaster. But you can have loops in the track designer, which kinda makes their absence until now that much more apparent. I suppose they decided to reserve them for the end to make it that much more special. The Ice Age exhibit here looks and feels very out of place, but amusement parks do love their zaniness. As can be seen here in this wacky tunnel oh, for crying out loud. Okay, I feel like I should explain my aggravation with slipping off the track. Yes, it's realistic, but here I feel like it's to the detriment of the game. It isn't a fun mechanic, and it isn't even consistent. Sometimes you go through a turn just fine, sometimes you wipe out. Maybe it's to encourage you to slow down for the turns, but why would you do that? Especially when the first half of the game trains you to always take the inside of the turn, and that there's no speed penalty for doing so. Why does it change the rules in the middle of the game? Not to mention the times you wipe out for seemingly no reason at all. That kind of random bullshit doesn't lend itself to an enjoyable experience for the kids this game was obviously made for. I don't think they're interested in emulating the general wonkiness of real slot cars. And it's not because I'm running this on a modern machine. The same thing happened when I played this 20 years ago. It's aggravating because it's a terrible design choice in the middle of an otherwise fun little game. It's a good thing the AI can wipe out too, otherwise it'd be even more unfair. But the game still has one saving grace that I keep coming back to. Fantastic environments. This game is a glorious blend of real and surreal. Plausible settings, impossible track layouts. This game has heart. If the mechanics were more refined, I'd call this a hidden gem. The settings themselves are what helped make this game so memorable for me. But the gameplay could use some fixing. Yeah, it's another one of those old games that needs more than just a facelift to be salvaged, but these environments are definitely worth taking inspiration from. I can't get enough of them. I wish mechanics looked this good. But not everything is a winner. Knight's Kingdom is kinda bland, and the roller coaster in Wonderland, while fun, isn't especially interesting to look at, even though the idea that the slot car track is the roller coaster is pretty neat. What isn't neat, however, is slipping off the track on every other corner, which doesn't really lend itself to a fun time. But I've prattled on about that more than I had any right to by now. After crashing into this sign like a dumbass, I made my way back through the Ice Age exhibit and finished off the final lap of the final slot car racing track.
Excellent! You took first place! Congratulations! You are an awesome tester. You can race in my lab anytime.
Yep, that's it. You're given one more bonus car for completing everything, and from here you're given the freedom to do whatever you want. To quickly go over the track editor, it's a nice little addition, but it's very limited in terms of the pieces you can place, where you can place them, and the size of the track. It's very easy to build yourself into a corner. What can I say, it ain't exactly Trackmania, is it? But it's a fun little bonus to be able to make your own tracks and even save them for later use. And when you race it, the background is the lab that you're doing all the testing in, which is cute and fitting. There is fun to be had here, and I did go ham back in the day making a whole bunch of my own layouts. But other than that, the only other thing to really mention is the multiplayer. In multiplayer mode, everything is already unlocked by default, allowing you to play with any of the cars on any of the tracks in split screen. Yeah, remember split screen? That seems to be a dying breed these days. All multiplayer is done online now. In more ways than one, this game is a relic of another era, and I respect it for that, for what it's worth. Alright, I'm about ready to wrap things up, and to do that, I thought it'd be fun to put together a little montage using the endgame credit music. You'll have to forgive the fade out at the end because, badass as the song is, it just abruptly ends in the game itself. So I salvaged it as best as I could. I'll see you in the next episode. Enjoy the montage.